night over dinner, I told my kids about the decision that I'm sharing with you today.
That's right, Cindy. I'm gay. And in case you haven't noticed, so is Ray. What?
All right, guys, it is January 8th, 2025. There you go. I did it right. I'm Dave Rubin. This is the Rubin Report. As always, we are live streaming on the computer, your phone, your tablet. I don't know what you're doing over there on Rumble, on YouTube, and on Locals. We got a post-game show, rubinreport.locals.com, right after the show. And there is a lot going on in the country right now, and some of it actually is quite horrific. So I think we've got a great show for you, and we'll lighten it up at points. Obviously, the main thing happening at the moment is that there are these unbelievably horrific fires raging through the Los Angeles area right now, mostly the Palisades, but now they're in Pasadena and a couple other places. And there's, I think, 30,000 people being evacuated at the moment. I mean, it's quite horrific. We'll tie that to a few different things, but I thought it was worth mentioning up top that if you are in LA or you know somebody that's in LA or in the area, we're sending you prayers and good luck, and we hope you get out safe because as I last saw, just even in the last 10 or 15 minutes or so, I mean, very little of this stuff, particularly in the Palisades, is under control at all. And you know, sometimes, you know, you want proper systems and you want good fire management or you want good city, you know, management and all of those things. But sometimes you got to talk to the man upstairs and hope that things will work out. So we shall see. I'm going to connect that to a bunch of other issues, yes, related to DEI and more. And then we're going to do a little friendly fire stuff. You know, one of the things I'm always talking about is that it's very easy for me to be like, oh, there's a crazy lefty. And then every now and again, we can pick our Bill Maher or our Stephen A. Smith, who I had on the show yesterday. We had a great chat. We'll put it up in a couple days. We can find the sort of saner liberal and compare and contrast them. But there's some interesting infighting on the right now happening, or at least differences of opinion on the right that are worth mentioning and exploring publicly. So the other day we talked about the H-1B visa thing and the sort of fight between the Viveks and Elons versus the more traditional America First Trump people. And now there's some other stuff bursting forth. And you know what? Since we're doing a show here, let's get right to it. What this is all about is this unbelievably, I said unbelievably horrific fires out of Cali. There's something also unbelievably horrific happening across the pond in England. And it's been happening for well over a decade, which is this Pakistani, largely Pakistani, grooming scandal where these men, largely from Pakistani descent, sometimes legal immigrants, often illegal immigrants, were coming in and raping or assaulting young girls, sometimes young boys. I mean, the whole thing is just horrible. And for 10 years, this has been sort of underbelly of the internet stuff where people were talking about it, but it did not bubble to the mainstream. It suddenly has in the last week, largely because of X and Elon specifically. But first, I want to show you a bit of the reaction to the sudden outrage over something that people should have been outraged over for the last decade. Here's Keir Starmer, the current Prime Minister of the UK. Here is who he's angry at over this at the moment.
And when politicians, and I mean politicians, who sat in government for many years, are casual about honesty, decency, truth, and the rule of law, calling for inquiries because they want to jump on a bandwagon of the far right, then that affects politics.
Okay, so we're going to try to get the numbers, and I think it's a little unclear how many thousands of girls claim to have been raped or sexually assaulted, et cetera, over, again, like a 10-year period, perhaps even more than that. We'll try to get you some numbers on that in a moment, but you can see what Keir Starmer is doing there. Keir Starmer, he's not really upset over what has happened or how it happened or the people who literally raped children. He's mostly upset at the far right for calling attention to it. And does this seem kind of similar to what we've been going through in this country, right? Remember Donald Trump back in 2015, we have to stop illegal immigration. And what did they call him? He's racist, he's far right, et cetera, et cetera. And the people who would talk to Trump supporters, they were racist and alt-right and far right. You know about that New York Times headline that I keep posted on my wall over there. You can just, it's right there if we can't move the camera at the moment, but it's a front page New York Times calling me one of the heads of the alt-right and Jordan Peterson and a bunch of others because we were having these conversations about a decade ago. Now, why is Keir Starmer playing a little shell game there? Don't look at who actually did this, be upset about the people calling attention to it. Well, it might be because there's a little guilt at his doorstep. Check this out from The Telegraph. Keir Starmer's alleged role in failing to tackle grooming gangs who targeted thousands of young girls must be part of any public inquiry into the scandal. Keir's government has refused a national public inquiry into the scandal in which thousands of vulnerable girls were raped and sexually abused by gangs of mainly British Pakistani men. Previous reports have published into the failures of the police and local councils, saying officers and prosecutors had avoided taking action for fear of being called racist or Islamophobic. But there have been growing calls for a statutory national investigation to examine wider failings, including by the Crown Prosecution Service, CPS, where Sir Keir Starmer was DPP between 2008 and 2013. Nigel Farage added, "I don't know the truth about the 2008 allegations, but let's find out what it was. But if he was part of it, if he was part of the cover-up, then we need to know that there was an attempt to cover this up, that the details were drip-fed out rather than one big splash is clear. His role should be part of that national public inquiry. He's the prime minister and he was the DPP." So Starmer in his past, perhaps, and this is what they are going to look into, this is what Nigel Farage is talking about, was one of the people in charge of the departments that was supposed to be looking into what was going on with these grooming scandals. And because of political correctness, I mean, it's the exact same thing that we have lived through here, a slightly different version of it, but it's the same notion. Because of political correctness, because of being afraid of being called racist or Islamophobic or whatever it might be, whether it's the border or whether they're raping your daughters, it seems that they systemically, it's a word that gets often used the wrong way, but that they systemically were allowing women, girls, young girls, it's unimaginable to be raped. Now, I want to check this out. I'm going to get into the sort of public spat that's now happening somewhat on the right at the moment. This is from Piers Morgan. The Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, must order a full, no-holds-barred national inquiry into exactly what happened in the appalling gang rape scandal and who is accountable for such lengthy systemic failure of justice for the thousands of victims, including his own running of the CPS. So this is now bursting forth, right, that Keir Starmer had something to do with what appears to be a cover-up here, and now he's the prime minister and basically saying, oh, don't look at me, look at that far right for making a point out of this. Check out one more from Piers here. Why did the UK mainstream media ignore the rape gang scandal? Okay, and the time splash that you're seeing there is from January of 2011. So it's not as if people did not know about this. But now here's where the spat is starting. And I think it's good that some of this is happening publicly. And this has been the beauty of X since the Elon takeover. A random account on Twitter responded to Piers Morgan and said this: "But yet you argued with Tommy Robinson when he was telling you what was happening. You decided to try and take the moral high ground by calling him racist. It hasn't aged well." And now you'll see where the heart of this is. Piers then responded to that and said, "No, I said he was Islamophobic, which he is." Then Elon Musk got involved. I know we're doing a little bit of like a daytime drama here, but I think you'll see how it's all coming together. Elon Musk responded to that. Piers's brain hasn't received its software update yet. Okay, so that's because of the accusation of calling Tommy Robinson Islamophobic. We'll have more on Tommy Robinson in just a moment. I saw the tweet that Piers put out, and then I put this up, and this went quite viral. I wrote, "Piers, I'd be happy to come on to explain why Islamophobia is a nonsensical word. A phobia is an irrational fear. How should a woman, gay, Jew, or any other minority, including Christian, feel living in a place dominated by Islam? Fear certainly wouldn't be irrational." And I think we all realize that. It is the false cry of racism, right? When racism does not exist. You are allowed to criticize any set of ideas. I would say to Piers Morgan, hopefully we can have this conversation publicly, but Piers, you're a free speech warrior. In a culture that was dominated by Islam, would you be allowed to be a free speech warrior and say whatever you want and say put up cartoon pictures of different things or talk about different religious texts, et cetera, et cetera? I think you know the answer. And now I want to flash back quite literally a decade ago. This is 2014. When the Rubin Report was just starting as an interview show, I had this British guy who I did not know of, but I kept seeing him being mentioned on Twitter for calling out some of this stuff, and I thought it was interesting. I had this guy, Tommy Robinson, on, and listened to him laying out what was wrong and what was happening in England and warning America, and then think how that relates to, I don't know, say a jihadist terrorist attack that we just had on the 1st of this year. Can some of the blame here be blamed on something related to British society that maybe we don't have here in America? America, for all our faults, and we have plenty of racial problems and all kinds of stuff, we've done the melting pot pretty well. Everyone has come here, no matter where they're from, and pretty much mixed in, bringing their traditions, and then becoming American. It sounds like, and from the emails I'm getting from Denmark and Sweden and all this, that something has happened in Europe, but I guess specifically in the UK, where for whatever reason, the Muslim population just hasn't integrated the way that other immigrant populations have. But could some of that be on the fault of the UK and not just the Muslim population?
Yes, it can, yes. It can be on the fault of multiculturalists who encouraged all these people to come here, told them that their culture was equal to ours, told them that they can go back into their own communities, they can live as they did in Afghanistan and Iraq and Pakistan. And as soon as anyone like ourselves tried to scratch beneath the surface to say, well, let's see where we differ culturally, let's see where our opinions differ, then we've been screamed down as racists. And the reality is, we need to understand, and you say it's worked relatively well in America. You have nowhere near the percent of Muslims in comparison to Europe, and it will not work well in America. And that's the warning you need to realise, is that you need to learn from what's happening over here, because you're going to face the same problems. If you have uneducated Somalians coming in uncontrollable numbers, you will face exactly the same problems I've grown up with in Luton.
Yeah.
If you allow Saudi Arabia, you allow Qatar, you allow Iran, you allow them footholds in your country with Salafist or Wahhabist mosques, you allow them to build schools and teach these children hatred, you will, in the next generation, be experiencing the hate that I experienced growing up.
That is quite a stark warning, again, 10 years ago. I do want to say on a personal note, it's a little hard for me to watch that. You know, I was dealing, those of you who have read my book, or I've mentioned it on the show, or my first book, I was dealing with alopecia areata at the time, which I had lost chunks of my hair, and I was on crazy experimental medication. You could see I looked bloated and huge bags under my eyes. It's hard for me to watch that. But fortunately, largely through diet and changing some lifestyle habits, I was able to fix a lot of that stuff. But anyway, the point is, Tommy, of course, was completely right. Cultures are different. We all know this. Diversity is not our strength. It doesn't mean diversity is awful, but it's certainly not a strength. That's just a meaningless slogan. It's just another one of those thin veneer things that the left pushes on everybody. And if you let in a bunch of people from anywhere who have wildly different cultures and don't treat women or minorities or whatever it might be equally, and you live in a pluralistic society based on individual rights and equality, you're going to have problems over time. I don't know, sort of like we have jihad rallies in New York City and Los Angeles now all the time, or what's going on over in Canada, or what's happening in the UK right now. So we seem to be in a slow motion version of what the UK is dealing with right now. And thank God Donald Trump's going to be president in a couple of weeks, and maybe we can put a stop to it. So now you can see sort of the difference here. You can see the Piers position, which was sort of like, oh, this Tommy Robinson guy, he's talking about this stuff. He's Islamophobic, which again, I pointed out is a nonsensical term. And then you can hear from Tommy Robinson his own thoughts himself. Do you think he's a bigot for wanting to defend his own country and way of life and equality for minorities and women and everything else? I'll let you make a judgment call on that. But now I want to connect this to something that happened over the last 2 days, which is that Jordan Peterson was on Piers Morgan's show, and Jordan and this is what is good about free speech and open inquiry. Jordan called out Piers as it relates to his attack on Tommy Robinson.
But there's another ugly issue here, Piers, that no one will grapple with, which is, you know, you described Robinson as anti-Muslim, let's say. Well, we don't really understand the relationship between the religious doctrine, let's say, and the fact of these crimes. Now, I want to make two cases here. You know, the first case is that 40 out of 50 Muslim majority countries in the world are authoritarian hellholes, and only 3 of them are democracies. And that's Morocco, Indonesia, and Turkey. And, you know, they're not, I wouldn't put them in the highest echelons of stellar states. And so why is that exactly? Is that a deviation from Islamic principles, or is it a consequence of them? Now, no one wants to have that discussion, and it's no bloody wonder, and then, so that's on the negative side, let's say. And there are certainly doctrines in Islam that are very, very difficult to square with free, liberal, Western, Christian democracies. And those differences aren't just apparent, they're deep. Now, I would say on the optimistic side that we could turn to Islamic leaders like those who run the United Arab Emirates, and even to some degree now Saudi Arabia, and the signatories of the Abraham Accords, to find a different pathway. But Europeans are virtue signaling so hard on the progressive side that the fundamental danger from Islamic fundamentalism is going to come from Europe and the UK and not from the Arab states. Now, Tommy Robinson has been pilloried as anti-Islam, but there's a discussion to be had here. And no one wants to have it. And, you said we need a national inquiry. It's like, we need more than a national inquiry. We need something like an international symposium on the relationship between the Christian West and the Islamic world, because there are ugly things afoot, and they've manifested themselves in the most hideous of all possible ways in the UK with regards to these rape crimes and the cover-up.
That's like example 4062 and 1 of why Jordan is just so great and does it the way nobody else can. But that really is the point. And by the way, I do, because I think Piers at least was wrong. His calling Tommy Islamophobic in the last couple of days, I think is wrong, and I'm calling him out for it respectfully here. I'm not going after him. It's an idea that he has that I think is wrong, and I'd be happy to talk about it with. But I do want to give him credit. He brought on Jordan, and then he let Jordan say his piece and say, you kind of had a blind spot with this. And he will continue to have that conversation. That's exactly what we need. What we didn't have on the left over the last 10 years was any healthy debate. It was just, you're racist, shut up, deplatform, blah, blah, blah. There's something, and I don't even know if it's correct to call it on the right now, but let's say on just the sane side of things, there is an important debate we are going to have. Why is it, as Jordan points out, why is it that in the United Arab Emirates, which has largely westernized, why don't they allow the Hamas rallies that we allow here in the United States and that they allow in the UK? Why is that? Maybe they know what this kind of extremism will do to their society. So their societies are flourishing right now, while our societies seem to be going into the slow descent to hell. And if you want an example of that, this is something that is pushed throughout our mainstream media constantly. Let's jump over to the televised mental institution known as MSNBC with blonde lady Joy Reid and a man who was fired from MSNBC not too long ago, Mehdi Hassan, who I believe is a jihadist and Hamas sympathizer. They fired him, and it's sort of like Brian Stelter. You get fired from CNN and then we just bring you back because it's hard to find people as awful as you, I guess. Here they are, and let's see who they're blaming about the UK grooming gangs.
He is still banging on and on and on about George Soros and all of these conspiracy theories of white replacement theory. And it's global white replacement theory. It's Muslims who are going to suddenly replace all of the Europeans. And there will be every, one in the UK will be named Mohammed, and there'll be no more Johns and Jameses, right? And they're spreading that meme, the idea that George Soros is somehow funding some secret cabal to replace all of white Europeans with people from Syria. That's part of what his push is too, along with, screaming about birth rates in Western countries. It's hard to decide what is the overall philosophy, but it ain't anything good.
No, it ain't anything good. And I think you can split it between, is he becoming more of a, what's the phrase, red-pilled? Is he radicalizing himself in real time? As Trump did. By the way, all these people are like former liberals or centrists, whatever you want to call it. They were not right-wing Republicans when they started out. Donald Trump, Elon Musk, RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard. They're all radicalizing themselves and coming to the same positions, as you said, to the Putins and Orbans of this world, the great replacement stuff. The anti-Muslim stuff is a common theme, whether you're in Germany, whether you're in the US. In the UK, he spent the last few days 200, 300 times tweeting about Muslim rape gangs and Pakistani immigrants and Labour selling votes for Muslims and raping white children.
Yes, you buffoon, you're actually making the right point accidentally. You guys pushed us all together. You pushed Elon Musk and Tulsi Gabbard and RFK and you person watching this and everybody else and Trump. You guys pushed us all together because you're more upset about what Elon Musk is tweeting about rather than girls being raped. And you are supposed to be the feminists, the progressives. You're supposed to care about minorities. But actually, you bow to radical Islam more than anything else. I mean, the match made in hell is the match of progressives and the match of progressives with the Islamists. And that's what you are getting right there. So yes, congratulations. There are now people who want to fight for their countries. You have taken all of the good liberals and given them common cause with the decent conservatives. And that's all of us. Versus, I would say, a decreasing amount of you, but you guys have a lot of evil tactics and you like to burn down things and the rest of it. So we'll have to deal with that. But note, it's very flippant. Oh, yeah, some girls are getting raped. Well, who cares about that? Let's not worry about that. They're worried about birth rates. Well, I would worry about birth rates if I was in a Western country and I started realizing, for example, that in the UK, you know what the #1 name for babies is in the UK? Don't take my word for it. Google it right now yourself. It's Muhammad. You might want to think about that. Just think about it. What does that mean for the long-term health of the UK? Will the UK be a monarchy in 50 years? Or will Mohammed live in the castle? I don't know. We'll see, I guess. Let's talk about Field of Greens for a moment, and then we'll connect this to a whole bunch more. I try to eat healthy, really I do, but I'm human. Sometimes I fall off the healthy eating wagon. Let's face it, guys, getting 5 servings of fruits and veggies a day doesn't always happen. That's why I love Field of Greens. It keeps me on a healthy track even when I mess up. Here's the thing. What's the point of taking supplements or drinking green drinks if you're not 100% confident they'll actually improve your health? Most don't. But Field of Greens, it's radically different. It's the only one that promises better health or your money back. Just enjoy 1 delicious glass of Field of Greens each day. And here's the kicker. At your next doctor's visit, they'll notice the difference in your health or you get your money back. Here's why it works. Every fruit and vegetable in Field of Greens is doctor selected for specific health benefits. They've got heart health, lung and kidney support, metabolism boosters, even healthy weight groups. Personally, I love the energy I get from Field of Greens. It's a game changer. And I love the peace of mind knowing it comes with their better health promise. Your doctor will notice your improved health or your money back. So if you've resolved yourself to getting healthier this year, Field of Greens has your back. Start now with my New Year's discount. Just use code DAVE at fieldofgreens.com. That's code DAVE at fieldofgreens.com. Give it a try. You've got nothing to lose and so much health to gain. Okay, so now I want to connect this to what's going on right here in America right now, because it's not just about the UK having a grooming scandal or having immigration problems or anything else. We know what's been going on with our border. And, we didn't spend a ton of time covering this story, and I actually regret that in retrospect, but there was a Augusta University girl by the name of Laken Riley, 22-year-old beautiful girl, who was murdered in February of last year, so almost a year ago, 11 months ago, by an illegal Venezuelan, illegal immigrant from Venezuela while jogging, okay? This story, the story did become something. We talked about it a little bit. You may remember Megyn Kelly referencing it in that Trump rally a day or two before the election, and how it's like, man, the progressives failed her. If you care about women, you might not want women to be raped and or killed by illegal immigrants. Well, there has been a bill sitting in Congress called the Laken Riley Act, and let me throw to a tweet here from End Wokeness. These are the names of the 159 Democrats who voted against the Laken Riley Act, which detains illegals over theft. Pass it on. So 159 Democrats yesterday voted against the Laken Riley Act, which just would have detained illegals over theft. I mean, think how radically anti-American. I don't know how you could put your hand on the Bible or whatever else these people put it on at this point and swear to it that you will defend the Constitution of the United States if you won't detain an illegal who committed a crime. That girl is dead. Now let me show you a sane Democrat. And yes, you already know who it is. It's hoodie-wearing John Fetterman from Pennsylvania. And here he is fully just, the guy gets it now.
Like, it's really common sense. And I'd like to remind everybody that we have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of migrants here illegally that have convicted of crimes. And why, I don't know why, who wants to defend that, to allow them to remain in our nation? That. And now if you're here illegally and you're committing crimes and those things, I don't know why anybody thinks that it's controversial that they all need to go.
Do you think that this was one of, if not the biggest issue for this election?
Well, I think if we can't, there's 47 of us in the Senate, and if we can't pull up with 7 votes, if we can't get at least 7 out of 47, and if we can't, then that's the reason why we lost. That's one of them. That's one of why we lost, in part.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. He reminds me of Robert De Niro in the movie Awakenings, if you have not seen it, about the guy who was basically in a coma and then gets this experimental medication. It's based on a true story, I think, that happened in Queens in the 60s. And gets some experimental medication and his brain turns on for a while. It doesn't, the ending's sort of sad. Robin Williams in it, it's a great movie. Anyway, the guy has come around, right? For whatever his progressives' mistakes were, and I'm sure I have some disagreements on some things with him and everything else, he has come around and he is really probably the most public, sane Democrat at this point. If they can't get 7 people on their side of the aisle, right? Like, what is the purpose of this party at this point? So, Joy Reid and Mehdi Hasan, when you're upset that, oh, Tulsi Gabbard and RFK are now on the same side as Trump and Elon and the rest of us, well, I think you can include John Fetterman in that. And again, it's not because John Fetterman's the radical, it's because you guys are the radical. I got a couple more tweets here from End Wokeness, which is a great Twitter account if you don't follow them. This administration did not fail to secure the border. They deliberately opened it. It was treason. And then they lay out a couple examples here. Listen to this. 94 executive orders to open the border. Border was sold off for just $5 a piece. Razor wire fences forcibly removed. Arizona's shipping crate wall removed. Sued to remove Texas's river walls. It's time for accountability. So really, you really do, leave that up for just a moment. And if you're watching and not listening to the audio podcast, like just looking at the images, the selling of the border wall, the hundreds of people just pouring through, that they went out of their way when, now you can come back, when they went out of their way to stop Texas and Arizona, when they were like, you know what, the feds aren't doing jack shit about this. We have major problems here. The Texas El Paso airport has basically become a migrant shelter. We don't like that. Kind of like the Martha's Vineyard people don't like it, but you know, they're liberals and they have a lot of money, so we get them out real quick. When the states decided to do something themselves, the federal government still went after them. So understand, it was completely negligent. Joe Biden, look, you know my policy. I'm not for putting presidents in jail and everything, but Joe Biden, for whatever time he has left on this earth, should be shamed into oblivion. We're not, you know, come 21st of January, we're not going to see him much longer because suddenly they'll announce that he did have dementia the whole time and everything else, and they're just going to push him away. But like him and his entire administration and Mayorkas, all the people who lied, like Psaki and Karine Jean-Pierre, all of these people should be shamed into oblivion because they got us to the precipice of destroying our country. And by the way, it is not a radical position to think that countries should have borders. It's not a radical position to think that culture matters and that there are things such as American values and individual rights, and not everyone believes in them. If you'd like an example of that, let's go back to 2019. Here's radical right-wing nutjob Dalai Lama saying that.
From Afghanistan or the Middle East want to stay in Europe. Shouldn't they be allowed to?
Limited number, okay. But the whole Europe eventually become Muslim country, impossible. Or African country, also impossible.
There's nothing wrong with that, is there? I mean, you're a refugee yourself.
They themselves, I think, better to their own land, climatically. Much better. Europe too cold.
My parents moved from India to the UK. That's now their home. That's okay too, isn't it? If Indians or anyone else wants to live in Europe?
I think England, the small island, 90% become Indian. Then I don't know.
I would like to once again congratulate Joy Reid and Hamas supporter Mehdi Hasan. When you guys are upset that there's a whole new team coming together, RFK and Tulsi and Elon and Donald Trump and John Fetterman, we can throw the Dalai freaking Lama in there too. Yes, you are allowed to have borders to defend your people. You are allowed to defend Western values and liberal values in a liberal pluralistic society. And if you import people who don't believe those things and act in accordance with that, then sorry, they gotta go home. That's how it is. We'll have more on the consequences of this totalitarian and backwards ideology known as progressivism, leftism, whatever you want to call it, in just a sec. But first, let me talk to you about home title lock. If you're a homeowner like me, when was the last time you checked the title to your home? That's the legal document that proves you own your property. If your answer is never, you need to know about a fast-growing crime the FBI calls house stealing. I was shocked when I learned just how easy it is for scammers to pull this off. Here's how it works. Criminals use a one-page document called a quitclaim deed. They forge your info, sign it with a fake signature, and stamp it with a notary seal, the kind you can buy online for as little as $20. Then they file this fraudulent document with county officials. That's all it takes for your home to be transferred out of your name without your knowledge. But here's the catch. These scammers aren't interested in living in your house. They're after your equity. They use your home as collateral to take out massive loans, then vanish, leaving you to deal with the financial and legal nightmare. The good news is you can protect yourself with triple lock protection from Home Title Lock. Right now, you can get a free title history report and a 30-day free trial of triple lock protection. Just go to HometitleLock.com and use promo code Rubin or click the link in the description below. That's HometitleLock.com. Promo code Rubin. Don't wait till it's too late. Protect your home and your peace of mind today. Okay, so for a moment, I want to jump to what's going on in the United States right now, which I can connect and will connect to everything that we've done previously here, but it's unfolding right now. It's unimaginably horrible. I will not do any sarcasm or anything else as it relates to that. There are unbelievable wildfires ravaging Los Angeles right now, Pacific Palisades, which is one of the, this does not matter specifically, but it happens to be one of the richest area codes, zip codes, in all of the United States, but it's up in the hills. It's extremely dry this time of year. It is completely on fire, largely destroyed at the moment. Altadena, there are now fires in Pasadena and a bunch more. So let's just throw to a quick compilation. And this is just in the last 12 hours or so. At the end there, what you're seeing are, those are people from an old age home in Altadena being evacuated. We'll just show you a couple more images here, and I'm sure you guys are seeing them. I mean, these are unimaginable. These are biblical type photos of what's happening. And again, it doesn't matter if the zip code is rich or poor or anything else, but it's just unimaginable, this level of fire. I saw this video last night before we get into the connection to everything else that we talked about. I saw this video last night. Steve Guttenberg, you guys remember Steve Guttenberg? Steve Guttenberg from Police Academy, from Cocoon. He was a huge actor in the 80s and 90s. I've met him many times. I used to see him on the Upper West Side all the time. I've seen him in LA a couple times. This is one of the most decent human beings you've ever seen. And check this out. This is a reporter sees him on the street. He's trying to help here in the Palisades, doesn't even realize who. Just watch this.
I wonder if I could just make, here on Palisades Drive, if anybody has a car and they leave their car, leave the keys in the car, so that we can move your car, so that these fire trucks can get up Palisades Drive. What's happening is people take their keys with them as if they're in a parking lot. This is not a parking lot. We really need people to move their cars. So if you leave your car in Palisades Drive, leave the key in there so a guy like me can move your cars and get them up there so that these fire trucks can get up there. It's really important.
Thank you for talking to us live, sir. What's your name?
My name is Steve Guttenberg.
Steve, do you live in this area?
I live in the area. Yeah, I live right up the hill, and thank goodness everybody. But I have friends up there right now, and they can't evacuate because it's stuck on Palisades Drive.
Yeah, and you're an actor.
Yeah, I'm an actor.
Okay, now you look familiar. You look familiar to me now.
Yeah.
So, sir, do you have family up there? I was just talking to that gentleman. He has a mom who's stuck up in the hills.
Yeah, there are people stuck up there. So we're trying to clear Palisade Drive, and I'm walking up there as far as I can, moving cars. But people leave don't take their keys with them as if it's a parking lot. There are families up there. There are pets up there. There are people who really need help.
Okay, so the reason I mentioned the thing about the zip code earlier is because of that video right there. At the end of the day, whether you're a rich Hollywood celebrity or you got next to nothing and you live in a shack, fire, these God-created events or devil-created events, whatever you want to call them, they're a great equalizer. And that's just a man trying to save his family and his property and everything else, and literally leave your keys in your car. There are people that are evacuating. There's tons of videos of this now, of people who have flooded the highways because they suddenly thought that the fire was going to get them in their car, that just left their cars, and then the fire trucks can't get through. There's such a litany of problems. But the litany of problems is partly, at least, man-made. Check this out from the film Police LA. Karen Bass, who is she is the mayor of Los Angeles. She's in Ghana right now, by the way. She's, I think, on the way back. Karen Bass cut LA's fire department funding by $17.6 million. That was her second biggest cut, and you can see some of the other cuts right there. Now, I want to make a point before I jump to the next segment, which is, in that I am not a big government person and I'm not a big taxation person. Throwing money at things is not just the answer, right? So you might be watching this going, well, wait a minute, Dave, you're for Doge and you're for cutting taxes and all of these things. So she cut some stuff. Now, cutting stuff in and of itself can be fine, right? You want to cut waste. The problem is that people have been complaining about how LA has dealt with fires for decades. If you've ever driven, say, up from Los Angeles up to like wine country or San Francisco, there are signs everywhere that California is mismanaging what they do with water as it relates to farmers and a whole bunch more. And people have been screaming about this forever. And now you'll see how we're going to connect it to a deeper ideology that does destroy things. This is video of when LA appointed its first female LGBTQ plus fire chief because they wanted more women and gay firefighters.
I'm super inspired.
She took time out of her already busy schedule to tell us about her vision for the department's future, one that includes a 3-year strategic plan to increase diversity.
People ask me, well, what number are you looking for? I say, I'm not looking for a number. It's never enough.
Out of 3,300 city firefighters, only 115 are women right now. She's already looking at ways to change that. She's quick to point out that doing so has a greater purpose, attracting the best and brightest for the job.
They feel included, they feel valued, and they feel part of a cohesive team.
The chief also checks another box when it comes to inclusivity and diversity at this department. She's a proud member of the LGBTQ community.
That just kind of opens the door of people that thought, wow, I didn't even know that that was an opportunity for me.
All right, I'm going to try to do this without all the obvious jokes. Look, I am not blaming the fire on DEI, but you must understand that if a fire department or a police department or any institution, if any institution says, oh, we are going to focus on diversity, there's never enough, as she says, well, then you're not, while you're focusing on that, you only have a finite amount of time. You only have a finite amount of resources. While you focus on the skin color or genitals or who your firefighters sleep with, you are not focusing on proper training. You're not focusing on, say, controlled burns or cleaning out brush or any of the other things or rescuing people properly. So some portion of what is happening right now absolutely is connected to DEI, and everyone's, you just know it. You just know it. Every institution, once you start doing that, if you're training people to do a job, once you start training them somehow that they should spend more time on their genitals and skin color, you are going to have a major problem. Now, interestingly, I said on the show at the end of the year that I was never going to talk about this guy again after basically ending him on Piers Morgan a couple weeks ago. But when I was on Piers Morgan's show right before Christmas with my former boss, progressive, leftist, socialist nutbag, Cenk Uygur, he was going, I kept saying to him, what position do I hold that you don't think I believe in? And listen to what he says as it pertains to gays and firefighters.
Wow. And when are you going to admit that you changed all your positions for money?
I tell people what I believe in.
What do you believe in? You believed in something yesterday.
It.
You don't believe in anything today.
Yeah, what position? What position do you think I hold that I don't honestly believe? Name one. What position do I say that I believe that I don't really believe?
You went on Tucker Carlson on Fox News and said gay people, that the fact that the fire department was recruiting gay people was why there was forest fires. You're a national embarrassment, okay?
Right. I was talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, that you shouldn't hire people based on their genitals or their sexual orientation. And we now all know that. You have been one of the prime pushers of all of this neo-racism.
Can you say one thing that Dave Rubin believes in today that you don't think he believes?
Donald Trump has YMCA. Isn't there a firefighter in there? There's a cop and an Indian. I'm not sure.
Hold on. Look, Dave doesn't believe in any of the positions he believed in. Before he thought he believed in affirmative action.
Name
he believed
one.
in this. Okay, affirmative action. And now he says it's the worst thing in the world.
Affirmative action. I evolved. I used to believe in identity politics because I was a progressive like you.
You asked me to say.
Yes,
Why can't he
asked me
change?
to name something you changed on. I named it.
You're telling me I don't believe what I'm saying right now. You're calling me a sellout.
Sort of sorry for bludgeoning you with that grotesque ogre, but the point is that now in the city that he lives in, it is burning down, and it doesn't have nothing to do with exactly what we were arguing about right there. I don't care if there are gay firefighters. By the way, it turns out that there's no gay firefighter in the Village People. If I was on my deathbed, I would have sworn it. Who knows? But generally speaking, if there's a handsome, well-built firefighter, the gays are very happy about it. I don't care. But at the end of the day, if your house was burning down and your neighbor's house is burning down and someone comes to save you and save your kids and your dog, are you going, whoa, 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 Whitey, you're not diverse enough. I want a black lesbian to save me. No. But once they let that idea, I've discussed this. You can find an interview that I did with Peter Boghossian probably 8 years ago where we talked about this. It wasn't even called DEI really yet. But as wokeness was creeping into institutions, he was, I think, the first guy that I ever heard it from, making the point, if it gets into an institution, it's a shell game. Suddenly you're focused on a whole bunch of other things rather than the core competency. And then what are you left with? So do you think right now the Los Angeles Fire Department has all of the best people? Or is it possible, the woman said it right there, that they started hiring based on other things? Anyway, we'll connect more of what bad progressive ideology does to cities and states to New York in just a second. But first, let me talk about 1775 coffee. It's time to make mornings great again. If your coffee isn't fueling your fight for health and freedom, it's time for an upgrade. 1775's Vitality Coffee isn't just coffee, it's brain fuel for patriots. Packed with lion's mane, reishi, cordyceps, chaga, and turkey tail mushrooms, this coffee doesn't just wake you up, it keeps you sharp and ready for anything. Lion's mane and reishi boost focus, cordyceps deliver clean, crash-free energy, and our hand-picked Bolivian beans pack a bold flavor corporate coffee can't compete with. No fillers, no woke nonsense, just coffee that works as hard as you do. Proudly backed by Rumble, this coffee isn't for conformists, it's coffee for the bold, the free, and the rebellious. Head over to 1775coffee.com and use code Rubin for 15% off. Make mornings great again with coffee that stands for bold flavor, uncompromising quality, and the freedom Rumble champions every day. Okay, so how does rotten progressive ideology and then the inability of good liberals to stop it, how does it destroy things? Well, we've given you a couple examples here. Number one, UK grooming scandal. First off, they let in all of these people, and then they literally hid it when these Pakistani migrants were raping girls. Bad. What is happening in Los Angeles right now? We just laid it out. If you are going to have fire departments, it's not the only reason the fires exist, obviously. But if you are going to have fire departments that don't only focus on stopping fires, but focus on a bunch of other imaginary racism and inclusion things, then you're not going to have the best when all hell breaks loose, which is exactly what's happening right now. And let's connect this to bad governance in New York, because New York Governor Kathy Hochul, who's one of the worst, I usually refer to her as Kathy C-word. You may have heard she brought in this idea of congestion pricing, where they were going to charge cars $15 to get into New York City. Now, of course, the irony of this is the progressives, what are they for? They're for poor people. Well, congratulations. You're a poor guy who lives in, say, Hackensack, New Jersey, and you've got a job in New York City. Congratulations. You got to pay $15 every day to get in there. Well, she got some pushback. And, well, first, let's take a look at her announcing the congestion pricing.
And so it begins. New York City will be the first city in America to charge Americans just to go to work in the morning.
Very first state in the nation, the very first city in America to have a congestion pricing plan.
Americans will have to pay around $23 per day.
Passenger vehicles would be charged $15 to enter the congestion zone, trucks between $24 and $36 depending on size, and motorcycles $7.50. Those tolls would be charged once per day and would be in effect between 5 a.m. and 9 p.m. on weekdays and 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. on weekends. Fees.
The proposal aims to reduce traffic congestion.
All right, so this is what the progressives do with everything. There's no doubt that there's a traffic problem in New York City. Of course there is. I lived there most of my life. There's a traffic problem. But what do? Oh my God, if we can just charge people more money to come into the city, what is the conclusion? That less people will come into the city, so now you're gonna have less commerce, or, oh, we're gonna just get more of their money. Well, then where is that money gonna be made up? Well, then the trucks coming in that are bringing goods in, guess what? The guy who's selling the goods is gonna charge more for the goods. The guy who lives in Hackensack, who doesn't make much money, is now gonna come into the city less or get a job elsewhere, and jobs will, like, everything they do makes things worse without exception. Anywho, people got pissed at this crazy Kathy C word, and now she's shifted, and instead of $15, it will be $9.
So I made the decision to put the congestion pricing program on pause while we devise a different path forward. State law requires that congestion pricing simultaneously raise money for the MTA and drive down traffic congestion. These are important priorities. But I believe that no New Yorker should have to pay a penny more than absolutely necessary to achieve these goals. And $15 was too much. And I'm proud to announce we have found a path to fund the MTA, reduce congestion, and keep millions of dollars in the pockets of our commuters. Under this plan, the MTA will implement a congestion pricing plan with a reduced daytime toll of $9 beginning in January. You heard that correctly. It was $15 before, and now it is $9. That is a 40% reduction. This lower toll will save daily commuters nearly $1,500 annually. And that kind of money makes a big difference for our families.
I'm sorry, guys, mute me if you got kids in the room. That is the most, just put it on mute, I'll give you one more second. That is the most fucking ridiculous, bananas, retarded shit I have ever heard in my entire life. Do you see what she just did there? She makes up a number out of thin air. We'll charge $15 for people to come in. They push back, then it's $9, and then she announces with a graphic, we've had a 40% reduction in the thing that I just made up a second ago. Where's the clown? Where's the clown? I want to punch the clown. These are horrible people. They're horrible people. And maybe what's happening right now between the fires and this congestion pricing thing and the raping of the girls in England and everything else, maybe we're almost at the end, so it has to get the craziest right before it's over, right? Like we have to hit the core of hell before the phoenix can rise from the ashes. What do you think about that one, Phoenix? His name is Phoenix. You're gonna rise from the ashes after all this? Like that woman. So we played the clip before of Joy Reid and the Hamas guy going off on how they've put all of these people together, right? All these liberals are now with the bad conservatives and the rest of it. So this is actor Michael Rappaport. Now, you know my feelings about actors. It doesn't matter what they think that much. But this guy was a progressive lefty his entire life who has been red-pilled in the last year. He lives in New York City. He's not happy about this.
I'd rather see a sick stray dog that's meandering through Central Park that takes a shit right in the middle of Central Park. I'd rather vote for that pile of shit than vote for you. I don't give a who's running against Kathy Hochul. You should be ashamed of yourself.
So congratulations again, Joy Reid, Mehdi, all of you people. You have brought us all together. This guy, lifelong lefty, he was radically anti-Trump. He voted for Trump this time. But this is all of your bad policies as it pertains to the border, as it pertains to gender, and all of the stuff. Now literally the congestion pricing in New York City, all of the stuff. You guys have just ruined everything, and you're giving us the greatest party of all time. And that is going to be the challenge, to hold that thing together, because when you take a whole bunch of people who aren't completely ideologically aligned, keeping the cohesion around that, that's the challenge. That's where I'm going to focus. Anyway, here's Representative Mike Lawler. He went on Joe Scarborough's show over there on you know where, and talks about what a scam this whole freaking congestion pricing thing is.
Congressman, let's talk about congestion pricing now. And it's split a lot of New Yorkers, and I understand. I mean, it is really hard on commuters, and it's very difficult for a lot of people getting in and out of New York City that just can't afford this new tax. I do wonder, though, as you drive around New York and you look at it, seems like everything was built during the Depression, right? You know, it seems like so much of the infrastructure there is 70, 80, 90, 100 years old and needs updating, needs renovating. If not congestion pricing, then what do New Yorkers do? What do we all do to keep that infrastructure up to date?
Well, first, New York got $100 billion from the bipartisan infrastructure bill. And the state, frankly, has done a horrible job of releasing those funds for infrastructure improvements, not just in New York City, but across the state. The fact is, Governor Hochul is charging the average New Yorker $2,500 more to drive into the city to go to work on an annual basis. And meanwhile, she's spending billions of dollars in taxpayer money on free housing, clothing, food, education, and health care for illegal immigrants.
Hot diggity damn, a little sanity over on MSNBC. I don't know how anyone watches Scarborough, not just because of the lies and the propaganda and everything else, but he talks so slow and just loves to hear himself speak as he's leaning over because he's just talking like this. But yes, they have allowed these people in. They have destroyed the city services. They have created crime and the smell of weed everywhere, and that people are literally being burned alive on the subway and pushed in front of subway cars. And now it is literally a trend now. So many people have been pushed in front of subway cars that, well, take a look at my friend Clay Travis analyzing the absurdity of what's going on in the New York City subways right now.
I saw a picture that went viral. A lot of you probably saw it. In New York City, people are so afraid of being pushed in front of a subway car if they have to ride the subway that they're now all standing with their backs against the wall in the subway rather than stand anywhere close to the track because they're afraid that some crazy person might be coming by and shove them right in front of the subway as it comes in. That's a test of whether Democrat policies are working or not. In a lot of blue cities in America right now, a lot of you don't feel comfortable with your wife or your daughter or your granddaughter being out for a jog because you're worried something might happen to her in the neighborhood while she's going for a jog.
Yeah, that is just true. And it does not have to be this way. What was my favorite line when DeSantis was running for president? It didn't work out the way I wanted, although I'm obviously very happy about the Trump situation now. But DeSantis had a great line. Decline is a choice. It is a choice, and they have chosen it. You know how they chose it in New York? Because not only did they have her, she was installed as governor after they got rid of Cuomo, but then they reelected her. So you chose this. You chose the criminality. You chose the illegals. You chose the buffoonery of, my God, I'm getting 40% back on the imaginary $15 she was just charging me yesterday. She needed $15 yesterday. She gets a little pushback. Now she's saving you $9. That's right out of idiocracy. That's how insane it is. I saw another tweet that was great from N Wokeness. Look at this. America 1975. I bet in 50 years we'll have flying cars and living on Mars. America 2025, and there's two images there. One of the people lined up against the wall. People are literally afraid to stand anywhere near the subway cars for good reason. And there you go with all of the stuff that's locked up at CVS or Walgreens or Duane Reade. You want a toothbrush? You're going to have to ask somebody for it. So look, guys, the Democrats did this to themselves, and they will keep pushing us together, and that is good. But we got to keep calling them out on their nonsense, because even the ones who seemed semi-sane throughout it, they brought us to the precipice of the end of the country. They really did. James Carville, who's thought of, we've played a bunch of clips of him. He was a legendary Democratic campaign manager, right? He worked with Bill Clinton for many, many years, an analyst. He now is doing a little post-mortem on what the Dems have to do after Kamala's loss. And it's like, dude, mirror, please.
The first thing I would do in terms of this campaign, when a plane crashes, they don't say, let's look forward and forget about it. They say, no, let's go find out. Maybe the flaps were set at the wrong angle. could have been a maintenance problem, or was it? So you find out. And I don't think we need to, but I think we need to find out. I think it was over $3 billion spent on our side. What did we do right? What did we do wrong? What got wasted? Where was it concentration? I mean, with a military operation, if you got the title table wrong, they're going to come back and investigate and say, "What did we? You didn't figure this out, or where the troops were going to land."
You're right, James. When a plane crashes, they should investigate. And if they investigated what happened to the Democratic Party, they would look at all of the people who were lying to the base the entire time. Connor Q, video 42B.
What were good people on both sides of Charlottesville? I don't know. Did I hear that, or did I make that up? That Trump said they're good people on both sides.
He didn't say that.
He did not. He
said it, but a sentence later he said, "I'm not talking about the white supremicists and the neo-Nazis."
Well, yeah, I have to. It's like Elon Musk.
So all it took was me saying one line that was truthful to the guy. He was pushing out the biggest lie around Trump. That was a year ago or a year and a half ago. He was still pushing it out. And as you know, Barack Obama used that very lie just 2 days before the election. And more of us have woken up. Thank God for whatever free internet there's been, and Elon getting X and Locals and Rumble and the rest of it, so that we can communicate this way. And so, dude, if you're trying to figure it out, right? You want to figure out why the plane crashed? Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the liariest liar of them all? Let's connect this to another progressive who seems to be waking up. So when we find that wide tent that Joy Reid's so upset about, my former colleague at the Young Turks, Anna Kasparian, a lot of people have been talking about her because she seems to be waking up in real time. And here she is quoting something that is an offshoot of something I say all the time. And I think when someone's waking up, if their motives are true and they're willing to take account for what they've done, it's worth looking at. So take a look.
I've never read a quote that resonated with me more than this one does, so I'm gonna read it, okay? So, you don't get red-pilled overnight. It's the issues that affect your everyday life first, and then you connect them with people, and then you connect it with a party. That is so true, and that is what I was trying to get across to people. When you're affected day to day by quality of life issues, and all you hear from the Democratic Party is shut up, no, it's not happening, and if it's happening, it's not that big of a deal. Man, that really does red pill people. It builds resentment toward the party. And I really think that Democrats need to pivot away from that, because they're gonna keep losing if they think that that type of treatment of voters, that type of disrespect toward voters is gonna get them anywhere.
Yeah, so look, the line I always use on this, as you know, is some people take the red pill, right? Some people swallow the red pill and some people snort the red pill. But it is your life. So 10 years ago, when I was waking up to the absurdity of the homeless situation and the drugs on the street in LA and all of those things, I woke up to them just as she's now doing 10 years later. Now, she has said some pretty awful things about me, but there are more important things than little personal spats. And I want to take every good, decent person who has woken up and maybe help angle them towards the truth, right? And Piers asked me if I would have a sit down with Anna.
Out of interest, I mean, if I could make it happen, would you debate her?
Yes.
On Uncensored?
Yeah, 100. I said that on my show after we played that clip. I'd be happy to do it with her live, just the two of us in studio. If you want to be the host or moderator, I'll do it under any condition, because again, I think it now represents something that could be unbelievably good for America.
Yeah.
Progressives who have called everybody racists and bigots and impugn motives. I mean, people just watched that compilation right there. Always going after people in the worst nature. If you've now woke up, and from what I understand, I've seen some of her tweets, she's now being attacked the same way she attacked me. So I would say, much like Bruce Willis said in Die Hard, welcome to the party, pal. But we can be on the same side, even if we still have political disagreements. Okay, we don't agree on the marginal tax rate or the immigration rates or something like that. If you love America, if you think this place is fundamentally good, if we still have a country that will offer more opportunity for any other place, and you want to be part of that, yes, whatever the circumstances are, or the moderator is or isn't, I'd be happy to do it. But if it's you, that would be great. All right, I don't know if it'll happen. on a personal note, it doesn't even matter to me that much. I'm trying to talk about the underlying ideas here, that we see what progressive rule has done to cities, to states, to nations, to countries across the pond and our very own country right here. And the more people that wake up out of that zombified stupor, the better. So, Anna, if you want to do it, I don't know if, well, you probably don't have my number anymore. I got a new phone, but somebody will figure it out, I think. That is our show for today. We will be back with a live show as always tomorrow. We've got a post-game show coming up in 30 seconds at rubinreport.locals.com. And I have been told that officially yesterday, our tequila has crossed the border. We have made it out of Jalisco, Mexico. We are in the United States. We will be at the warehouse soon, and then we'll get it out to you fine people. My full interview with Tony Robbins, which if you have not seen yet, I'm just telling you, was one of the most enjoyable interviews that I've done in a long, long time. It was just great. As I said yesterday, we had Stephen A. Smith on. We'll put that up in a couple days. And that is all for now. See you tomorrow. And just truly, just good luck to everybody in LA. We're praying for you. All right, post-game 30 seconds. Ciao.
The American dream possible. We will fight hard for the freedom to vote.